application experience really is the new currency that we find ourselves in. So let me just move on from here. So today what we'll be looking at is the application delivery controller and really what that is. And for many of you, it may be a straightforward concept. And I thought I'll just cover it off briefly, what it's all about. And so in its simplest form, really, the ADC is a network load balancer of servers. And one of the primary goals of this load balancer is to improve availability of those backend servers. So for example, assume that you had 3 of the same websites in your data center that clients need to connect to. So instead of connecting to the server directly, they connect to this ADC. And the ADC would then use its advanced health monitors to determine the state of services in the backend so that it can accept incoming requests from clients and then balance those connections according to rules that you define. So these could be round robin, it could be based on the server that's least busy. And these don't really just have to be web servers, they could be application or database servers. And this really allows for a smarter traffic control, depending on what happens in the backend. And so, for example, with content switching, it's a policy that we could use to define how we direct a request based on, say, for example, the URL that the user has entered. Or if you've got a database in the backend, really about looking at that intent. And intent is something we'll speak about a little bit later again, looking at the intent of that connection, which database would be best suited to serve that transaction. And so to cater for this availability of the ADC itself, we could either run this as a high availability pair or as a cluster spanning across 32 different nodes. And we can even run these ADCs in different geographical locations to provide users and customers with global server load balancing. And this really speaks to what Anthony already discussed about where you run your different workloads from. And one of the questions in the chat earlier was about where you could run your different environments, your different desktops from. And the ADC is really some of that capability in the backend that allows you to do that. In fact, this ADC can sit between different layers to allow the solution to scale where it's needed to improve the availability of each of these layers. And this is what we really traditionally call the 3-tier application approach. So when we talk about the way traffic flows, we typically talk about this client to server traffic, that north-south direction of traffic. But modern applications of today are moving towards this containerized approach, typically running in a Kubernetes environment. And so load balancing these microservices requires a more automated and orchestrated approach with an ability to also manage this east-west traffic. Okay, so that was a quick introduction of what the ADC is and as a typical load balancer. And what we looked at is just a perspective on the ADC of increasing the availability of applications and APIs. But there are other reasons for us to have an ADC that's necessary. So in many cases, these could even be the compelling reasons for adopting an ADC. Things like security, client-server connection offloading, performance, a management of your environment. All of these are valid reasons for this ADC solution to come into play. Application experience is the new currency, as I said, and applications and APIs have become the greatest asset of many organizations today. And it's really safe to say that we live in an application and API economy.